Hi, my name is Valentino. You may know me for a couple of my skits on this YouTube channel, but today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, something a little bit sadder. 2020 and the crazy pandemic has robbed people of loved ones. I have friends who have lost parents and grandparents and siblings and friends, and even though that by itself is truly terrible, COVID has also robbed people of the ability to mourn. The worst thing is, for some, this is the first time that they are dealing with a major loss in their life, and they may not have any idea what is going on or how they are supposed to feel. Luckily, you guys have me, and I know a little something about loss, since I lost my father when I was 21 years old, a week before my birthday, which was great. I have been through this horrendous thing that some of you may be going through right now. So forgive me for shifting gears for a moment, and I hope if you are going through something similar, that if this video could help you in the smallest ways, then maybe I did something good today. 12 years ago, on February 7th, 2009, my dad died, and I actually got to the room a few minutes before he passed. And let me tell you, I remember everything. I remember him just laying there, motionless, with his mouth open. I remember the rest of the family at the door because they couldn't come in yet. I went there first. And after that, it was a crazy roller coaster of bad decisions and just sadness. And for a long time, I will wake up in the morning and I will think about my father, and I would go to bed thinking of my father. Probably led to my delightful insomnia, which is why I'm filming this at 1:30 in the morning. I can honestly say that I thought about my father every single day for years. And I would celebrate his passing on the anniversary of his death for two reasons. One, I couldn't remember his birthday. See, my father's birthday was based off the lunar calendar, and that changes every single year. So it was impossible for me to keep track of. And two, I had to celebrate something. So even though I celebrate him on the day he died, I choose to celebrate his life. So every single year, I would take some kind of nice photo of him, anything I could think about, and I would order a mapo tofu, his favorite food to eat from China. Now, if you don't know what mapo tofu is, consider yourself lucky. It is disgusting. If something could taste like nothing and ass at the same time, you would have mapo tofu. He died 12 years ago, so we are going to do 12 plus 1 for good luck. 13 things I learned after my father passed away. Let's go. Number 1. The first year is going to suck the most. When my father died, I went to go visit an old teacher friend of mine from high school. And he told me that the first year is going to be the worst and roughest part of it, because it is the year of firsts. First New Year's, first major holidays, your first birthday, his first birthday, or for me, the first year of the day he died. All of these moments coming back again, all of those previous happy memories turning on you. This is the biggest hurdle, the hardest time period. After you get through this, it does get easier, but it never really goes away. Number 2, you are going to irrationally hate yourself. When my dad died, I thought it was my fault. I thought if I was somehow smarter or faster or stronger or just a better son, I could have saved him. And to be honest, this led me to hate myself a lot. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror was the worst, because I would just see him and the guy who couldn't save him. The things I say to myself, how I killed my dad, how I'm worthless, how everything is my fault. Listen, I can't tell you how unfair I was being to myself and how hilariously crazy it was. Listen, when my father died, I was in my 3rd year in college. I was studying theater. What the fuck exactly was I going to do? I was not going to become a scientist of any kind, especially not an oncologist. Like, the only thing I really knew about cancer was that cancer is bad. And then your brain goes to weird places. I was like, I'm going to collect the Dragon Balls and wish my father back. The truth is, Everyone dies. And sometimes naturally. Sometimes in incredibly unfair ways. And it is not your fault. Number three. Don't worry about how you're going to feel afterwards. Because no matter what you feel, it's going to be natural. When my dad died, I felt nothing. I don't think I even really cried for the first few weeks afterwards. And for the longest time, I was just numb to absolutely everything. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I felt nothing. I was just a black hole. Good news is, after that black hole melted away, I was left with sadness and super anger, both of which stayed with me for years. Many years. Holy shit, was I depressed? Number 4. For the love of holy fuck, do not use drinking or drugs as an emotional crutch. When my dad died, I drank a lot. Not just like a few times a week, I mean like almost every single day. Warning, some of my family is hearing this story for the first time, and for that, I do apologize. How you doing? I drank in the morning. I would drink in class. I would drink in the shower. I would drink just so I could fall asleep. Do you know how bad it is? You have to get drunk so your brain will shut up so you can go to bed. The process went like this. Me hating myself for something completely out of my control, to the point where I had to drink ludicrous amounts of alcohol to go to bed. And then when I woke up the next day, I would restart that process. This went on for about 6 months. Shit. Maybe I was depressed. But on the bright side, eventually things did get better. Number 5. Find a positive way to channel your bad feelings. Now, I just told a very painful story about how I used to get intoxicated all the time. Hey fam. And I didn't want to tell that as a, hey, look at me, I'm so cool, I'm drinking to avoid my emotional issues kind of story. It's not a happy time in my life. It's definitely a cautionary tale. I drank because for 6 months I was just a dark hole and I had to fill it with anything that I could. I just did everything to try to feel something. And at the end, none of that worked. But I'll tell you what did finally work, and that was writing. That's right, I poured all my anger and sadness into writing. I sat down at about 1 o'clock in the morning and I typed out an entire play. Well, 45 pages. And it was called Feeling Under a Blue Sky. Something told to me by my good friend Victoria, hey Vic, who said that right now everything's gonna suck. But one day, you don't know when, you're gonna wake up and everything is just going to be better. Not 100% okay, just better. And she was right. I love you, Vic. I poured all my sadness and all of my rage, and after writing it, I just felt so much better. After I finished writing the play, I entered it into the college play competition, where they selected as one of the 4 plays for the Winter Theater Festival. The play was about a young man whose dad dies. Sounds familiar. Afterwards, the main character, Lev, played by my friend Marco, hey Marco, hides his depression from everyone, with his best friend, his girlfriend, and the rest of his family, which causes him to strain all of his relationships. He has incredible damning thoughts and self-loathing, and blames himself over his dad's death. There was also other parts about a friend committing suicide, and he comes back as a memory ghost that tells him that it was his fault that he drowned himself. Now, let me explain that part. See, when my father died, it wasn't the only horrendous thing that happened. A few months before that moment, a friend of mine committed suicide, and then my dad died, and then about 8 months later, my friend almost died because he had a stroke. It was just one domino after another. If you think you are bad at handling one crazy, tragic event in your life, imagine 3. Thinking back, that was an incredibly crappy year. Yes, I said year. Sprinkled throughout the play were monologues written for each of the characters from their own perspective, his living best friend, a girlfriend, a mother, and even his dead dad, and his own inner voice, because I was super into Carl Jung. And the main character ends with a very cheerful monologue about how everybody lies about how well they're doing. I put everything into those pages. In my final spring semester before I graduated, I wrote another play. This one was called I Dream of Sheep, on the similar topic of death, but this time from the perspective of a middle-aged man who lost his wife from a disease. You know, you gotta change it up somehow. The story about this play is really about how this man does not handle the situation well at all. He nosedives into drinking and whoring around, and it causes a terrible rift between him and his son, and eventually they sort of patch it up. I put this play on 2 different times in my life, once after college in 2012 in New York, and another time in China in 2014. And then after college, I went on a school trip because my college professor asked me to join Hey Zishan, and I wrote a monologue exploring much of the same issues again, but this time from the perspective of a best friend. And I performed it myself. I was just sitting in a chair reading from a piece of paper, and this time I made an entire room full of people I never met cry. Now, I wrote 3 pieces after my father died, and I have to be honest, I felt better after every single one. If I could go back and do it all over again, well, 1, I'll tell my father I loved him one more time, and 2, I would have skipped that drinking portion and gone straight for the pen. Number 6, talk to somebody, even professionally. Now, most of the reason why I drank after my father died was because I am incredibly shitty at talking about my feelings. But Valentino, if you're so crappy about that, then why are you making this YouTube video? 1, I wrote it, and 2, it's kind of artistic, and as we just discussed, it is my outlet. Unless I'm using my trauma in some kind of artistic way, I'm usually very... And my college actually had free sessions with a therapist that I could have just signed up for, and I should have taken that chance to talk to someone who was legally required not to say anything about it to anyone. Now, here's the problem though. In America, where I am from, there is a weird stigma around seeing therapists and psychologists. Personally, I thought seeing one would make me weak. And you know it's not. There's nothing wrong with it. I wish someone told me that when I was a hot-headed kid who was angry against the world and angry against himself. But I'm telling you this now, that if you need it, go get it. And if anyone tries to make you feel bad about it, tell them to go fuck themselves. Number 7, it is alright to cry. And sometimes it feels fucking great. Now, there was a time, some years ago, where I would just come back home and sit on my couch and just cry for about 5-10 minutes. And it felt really good. And I did it because if I didn't, I felt like I could just break into a million pieces and I wouldn't be able to put myself back together again. Now, in America, where I'm from, there is a weird stigma against men crying or showing their emotions, which is, horrible. Personally, I think everyone should just watch anime. Boys cry all the time in anime. So I guess for this point is, if you really need to just go somewhere by yourself and let it out, do it. Anyone makes fun of you, tell them to go fuck themselves. That's a very good mantra. Number 8, a dark sense of humor. If you have made it this far, first of all, thank you very much. Second, you may have noticed that I am using humor as a defensive mechanism. And this is not weird. I am here in front of a camera, potentially in front of millions of viewers, about some incredibly personal things, and if I didn't try to at least make it funny for me, I might just break down and cry every single 5 seconds. I have joked a few times in this video about possibly being depressed or possibly being an alcoholic. And I say possibly because honestly, I have no idea if I were those things. All I know is I drank by myself all the time and to go to sleep at night, and I felt nothing for 6 months. And I know that sounds bad, but I was never actually diagnosed or spoken to a professional. And maybe someone in the comment section right now is like, oh yeah, Val, you were fucking gone. But since I don't know, I'm not gonna say that definitively about myself. But the funny thing about surviving through these traumatic events in your life at times is that it does warp your sense of humor. And this is not unknown to my 8 YouTube subscribers, but my sense of humor can sometimes be a little bit grim, but also pretty hilarious. For me, look at me crossing my arms because I'm being defensive. For me, when I think about all the bad things that have happened, and then when something brand new that's horrible happens, my default now is, oh, did somebody die? No, well then it's not that bad, which is pretty fucking grim. My dad, my dad lived through a lot. He had a long, adventurous, complicated life, and bad things happened to him like it happens to all of us. And he would always tell me that you have to look on the humorous side of life. You have to laugh, because if you don't, you might cry, and it can always be worse, which is hilarious when the worst thing actually happens. Ugh. Number 9. The world goes on. The day my dad died, it was Saturday. It was a beautiful, sunny, about 44-ish degrees day, which is, pretty warm in February. We literally just had like 7 snowstorms last week. If my dad did not die, I probably would have gone out and saw my friends and went for a walk or something. That's not how it played out. But let me tell you something. Another day came and it was beautiful. And then another day came and that day was also beautiful. In fact, there have been so many beautiful days since. Time passes on. My sister has 4 kids now. When my dad was alive, she only had 1. I've met new friends. I've lost old friends. I've fallen in love. I've fallen out of love. The world moved on. And that is beautiful. And that is also very scary. Number 10. Forgetting sucks. But it is really not the worst thing. My dad fell, and he was stuck on the floor in his apartment for almost an entire day before we realized something was wrong. And then me and my very good friend Phil, hey Phil, rushed over to his apartment, and we finally managed to get ourselves in. And I remember him laying down in the dark. And I remember my legs gave out. That's never happened to me. And I just fell, and I crawled over to him, and I helped to pick him up. And he tried to get himself up, and his elbows were covered in blood, and then his blood were on my hands, literally on my hands. And that's very fucking poetic. Phil and I have been friends since 2006. That is 15 years this September. And we've spent a lot of time together and a lot of money on sushi. Now, every single year on February 7th, my friend Phil would call or message me and just ask me how I'm doing. Now, last year, on February 8th, about 12:15 in the morning, Phil messaged me and said, dude, I'm so sorry I didn't call you earlier. How are you doing? And I have to tell you, I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. It's funny because my dad's death was on my mind every day. I have to say every day for maybe 10 years. And then on the 11th year, I actually forgot the anniversary. Now, I gotta tell you, I laughed because it was hilarious. And then I hated myself because I thought that I was a pretty bad person. Unfair, right? Now, there is a gray sweater that I have hanging on that hook over there. And my dad used to wear it all the time back when I was younger and I used to live with him. And I kept it for a while because of the way it smelled. It smelled like my dad, and I needed that. It's weird but now it just smells like my room, and that sucks. And I've known my dad for most of my life. One day it'll be less than most of my life. And I used to hug him, and I could hear his voice. I remember how he looks, how he would eat his food, how he would love mapo tofu for some fucking reason. But as the years begin to roll on, I begin to forget. I have photos of him, but even his voice is starting to slip from my memory. And he was a singer. He could sing opera. He was a naturally born and trained tenor. And after 21 years that I spent with him, this is the only video clip I have of him singing.
Far più malavento, muta da certo, e di pensiero, e di pensiero. She liked it. E di pensiero.
You know, this weird Instagram, Facebook, whatever culture of us photographing everything and putting it online may seem silly to some people, but to me, it's wonderful. When my dad died, smartphones were still in its infancy. I think it was just the second generation of the iPhone. With today's technology, it's so easy. Forget what the haters say. Take 1,000,000 photos. Take 1,000,000 videos. When that day comes, it's never enough. But I have to be honest with you, forgetting is not the worst thing. The worst things are the dreams. I remember the first dream I had of my dad after he died. We were sitting in a diner, just eating and talking. And it was nothing special. It felt so fucking normal that I thought I was awake. And then I woke up, and my dad was still dead. Ugh, I can't handle this. And I'm not the only one that goes through this. Now, this is a story of my friend, and I have full permission to share it. His father died on April Fool's Day. And he used to dream that it was an April Fool's joke that his dad died. Imagine that. Fuck. Ugh. Nowadays, I can recognize when it's a dream, and I try to stay asleep as long as I can. Number 11. Never say this to someone who lost someone. Now, I was a special person growing up. I was the first person in my group of friends to have a parent die. Yay! And I won a very odd prize, the magical gift where people call me an expert in my parents dying. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's just what I always wanted. What does that even mean? I guess if you've been listening to this whole entire goddamn video, I have given you some pointers on the do and do nots, but I don't think that makes me an expert, or does it? Now, since my father died, many of my friends have lost one of their parents. And when I would call them up to see how they are doing, they would say, well, you wouldn't know, Val. You are an expert. And I would be, what the fuck? I understand people are just trying to fill in the gaps in this crazy tornado, but I am telling you, cross this one off the fucking list. Number 12. Sometimes everything you think they wanted you to be will happen after they're gone. Now, after my dad died, I went through a few weird phases where I wanted to be him. I tried learning like 10 different languages. I tried learning the piano. I tried learning photography. The photography thing stuck. I felt that if I studied all the things that he loved in life, I could carry some part of him with me. I hope that by doing so, he wasn't completely gone. And it's weird thinking that all the crazy accomplishments that you're going to do in your life after they passed on is going to make you feel guilty, right? Oh, I got married today. Boy, I sure wish I did this earlier when my parents were still alive. Oh, I got my PhD today. Boy, I sure wish I did this when my parents were still alive. Oh my goodness, I had my first kid. I sure wish I did this when my parents were still alive. We feel that we should have done all these things before we were ready because we wanted those people to be here to experience it with us. And it's completely unfair that your brain just decides to go bonkers on you and make you feel bad for days that should make you feel super good. Number 13. I miss him every single day. Whew. Now I know this is a bit of a cop-out for the last point, but it's the truth. That is my 13 points. I hope you enjoyed it. It took a lot out of me. And I hope I managed to help you in some sort of way. And here's a book of the day. Joan Didion's A Year of Magical Thinking. I actually read this book in college in a class called Ephemeral Art. It was also around the same time that my dad died, which means that I could not handle this at all. So, fair warning. The book is about the author and how she lost her husband, and the first year afterwards and how she handled everything. Special thanks to my beta viewers and my beta readers. You guys are the best. Couldn't have done this without you. Thank you to all my friends and family for being there with me through these crazy times. If you have any nice comments, please leave it down below. Do that like and subscribe thing so you can watch my other videos. They will be happier, I promise. And yeah, catch you next time.